Alright, what's up class? Today I'll be giving a presentation on the Tsuchigumo no Soshi emaki, also known as the picture scroll of the earth spider, and for the rest of the presentation I'll just be referring to the Tsuchigumo no Soshi as the Tsuchigumo Soshi, just so it's one less syllable or thing to say. But if we move forward, this presentation, I'm going to say it's going to be like 12-14 minutes, 15 minutes on average, but we'll see what happens. And first, we'll break down some context, just as a quick refresher of where the Tsuchigumo Soshi emaki lies in history. And then we'll get into a screening, which will be like a recap or walkthrough of the scroll with the class. And it'll involve some participation from y'all if you're up for it. But don't worry, I mean, the answers are easy, and this is just so it's more like a conversation instead of me just talking at you the whole time. And then to put on like a more scholarly hat, we'll dive into my argument, or like kind of the stuff that led up to lead me to the abstract, which is also at the end, and then we'll just close it from there. Okay, context. Big word. So the Tsuchigumo Soshi belong to a genre known as the Otogi-zoshi, which you're all pretty familiar with. And as we know, the Otogi-zoshi is its main purpose was for entertainment and for religious edification. You know, they really wanted to spread all that Buddhism and stuff during this time, so you know that. And one thing to note is the emaki is just not the only part of Otogi-zoshi. There's also other subsets of it. Other subsets would include, nar-ihon, which would be picture books, and then there would also be woodblock prints, which there are some very cool woodblock prints of this Tsuchigumo Soshi artwork, but we probably won't have time for that, so let's just keep going. So screening. This is where we're going to get a little creative or imaginative. So if you all close your eyes and imagine we're taking a field trip to the Tokyo National Museum. And inside the Tokyo National Museum, there's this very intimate room. And within the intimate room, there's just this like glass vitrine, which is like this glass box where the emaki is enclosed in. And it's temperature controlled, this room, if I didn't say that already. There's like lights flooding onto it in a very safe way. And yeah, we're just able to view this. Okay, now you're gonna open your eyes again though. And this is probably what we'd probably see like along the wall, but maybe a very dimmed down version of it. See like color on paper, and yeah, this scroll was made or commissioned probably in the first half of the 14th century. And alongside that, we have a speculated writer and illustrator attributed to the Tsuchigumo Soshi. And yeah, one thing to note is a lot of extant texts don't really provide concrete evidence that these were the people, or the order we have in the Tokyo National Museum is completely right. But that's a good thing to keep in mind when studying these types of stuff, just because everything's very speculative. At least from my experience, that being of like 4 or 5 weeks, but yeah, that's not that much. But we'll keep on going. So right away, we're in the scroll. We're opening it. And as Professor Kersey would say, what are these clouds doing? You know, what do they mean? Not everyone at once, class. Okay, right. So that means narrative. So we're in a story right now. We get Raiko, the Fujiwara warrior, and his retainer, or little side person known as Suna, who is part of that 4 warriors people who are very great. So they ride into the Kitayama area, and then they go past the Raidaino cemetery, they keep going, and then they end up at this like old, what is this class? Yeah, like this dilapidated house that was part of some like aristocrat or something like that. So Raiko and Suna go up there. Raiko goes in front first, Suna kind of stays back with his bow and arrow archer stuff. Or not bow and arrow, just his archery kit. And then, Raiko just sees the lady that's 290 years old with that is like pulling her eyelids over with this sewing utensil, her like scalp, like this like latex thing. It's super gross. I don't know. Raiko goes in, gets more context. Spooky. Yeah. get some more text. And this is a very important part right here. So what I would say is this is like the another wave, or like the first huge wave of yokai, otherwise known as the Tsukumogami or intermittent tool yokai. And my immediate response was like, oh yeah, this is the suitcase yokai. This is the stool yokai. And this is the interior curtain yokai. Also known as like, those like Norin subdivider curtains that were in like our first classes. I don't know why they keep sticking with me throughout everything, but yeah. And you may be like, Michael, that's pretty naive just to like think that those things are, what you think it is. But like, I think that point of naivete is very important in my kind of explanation to what my essay later. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. Yeah. Basically, I didn't want to really mess with my first impressions. So yeah, we keep on going. We get the nun, 2 feet on top, 1 foot on bottom. We get the voyeuristic scene. Raiko sees the woman with the veil over her face. Gets closer and he's like, whoa, I don't know. Or like, whoa, I want to keep going and looking. And then the lady was like, whoosh. She like gets really like big in the scene all of a sudden. We get the like huge clothes going that it's just like flowing out. She throws a white ball of smoke. And on cue, what is this class? What is this long thing that Raiko's using to slash through this white ball of smoke? Yes, it's a sword. So loud or sound warning. So Raiko's just like whack. He hits the ground, and it's like his thing goes through. His sword shatters in half. It's very strange, and yeah, basically a white trail of blood appears. Raiko and Asuna like just follow this white trail of blood. They're like, I don't know, let's just keep going. And then side tangent. Suna and Raiko, they come across these like ogres who are like ready to spar. They're doing all these like hand gestures. And of course, like immediately, they're efficient warriors. They just condense on this like ogre who is so big in size, and then the ogre just becomes so small all of a sudden. So it's just there's these like drastic jumps that we could see here. And then, as we also know, Raiko and Suna, they go up to the cave where the white blood keeps going. They kind of see this like the earth spider there, and Raiko does the little homage to the sun goddess thing, Amaterasu, whatever, slashes the head off the earth spider. Suna continues to open up the previous wound from the lady, who is also like a reincarnation of this thing, or the spider. So then all these skulls fly out, and then they just bury the skulls after, and they're like, oof. At the end, like look at like he's like, okay, we're done with this. Yeah, I don't know, we're gonna be quickly appointed to, or like elevated in our aristocratic status. So yeah, the scroll ends, and they're kind of into it. So you may be asking like, Michael, why did you just make us go through the same scroll that we looked at 2 weeks ago, or something like that? And the point I want to get at is there's a quality of haste to the scroll in the pacing. As I was saying, like we get these jumps in action. It's basically like character, and it's just a bunch of events. There's not really this like in between, really. I would say, even though it's like a continuous, or even though it's like a scroll that's one piece, and this author, or kind of a scholar, James T. Araki, in Monumenta Nipponica, volume 36, number 1, he examines the genre of otogizoshi through a lens of like critical uncertainty. And I think a quote that applies to kind of this like hasty quality of the scroll that I had an impression of is the otogizoshi conformed to the preference of brevity, and thus character portrayal, depiction of nature, passage of time, and so forth were condensed in the extreme. And literary conventions and formulas became means of achieving further condensation in stories that describe the lifetime of an individual or events spanning many years. So let that sink in for a bit. This kind of quote is like just like highlighting, how this time is so condensed, hence making it so fast. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to parallel it to with the haste, and that's the source. So if we revisit the scene of the like wave of yokai I was going on about, or the tool yokai, um, you know, we just immediately grasp onto these objects. And for example, like David would know suitcase is a suitcase. Victoria would know stool is a stool, and maybe Parnian would know uh, if she really thought it was like exterior or interior curtains as an exterior curtain is an interior curtain. Then yeah, we get that whole thing. So it's very like this like tactile response, um, and I think that's like I don't know, that's something to be said there, and yeah, and also yeah, it's just like everything's so fast paced. It never really gives you like a break. I don't know if like the narration of like someone retelling the story would do the same as me, but that's what I get a sense of from all the readings and stuff. So something that applies to this kind of immediate response to these objects was this guy named Barthes, and Barthes was a person who studied semiotics, and semiotics was the study of signs. And Barthes came up with this concept of the signified and signifier. So the signifier, in the case of the this presentation, would be the painting of the Tsuchigumo Soshi, and the signifier, the concept being represented, would be in that scene with the tool yokai would be the tools that have acquired a kami or spirit. And this guy named Pierce later wanted to develop more on this theory of the signifier and signified, and Pierce came up with this third attribute. And this third attribute comes in between the signifier and signified. So this would be the interpretant, what the audience makes of the sign. Sorry. And an example would be like Michael looks at the Nagataki's emaki, which is the Tsuchigumo Soshi, and saw, because that's like the illustrator, and saw the yokai as house objects rather than monsters. That's something important to keep in note. Yeah, immediacy again. Just want to highlight that. I don't know how many times. But yeah, side tangent. Kind of example that this reminded me of was 1 in 3 Chairs by Joseph Boyce. This is kind of a curveball, but basically that, what is it, guy? That Pierce guy, or no, the Barthes dude, continued to develop the theory of the signified and signifier. And I was like, oh, I'll just come up with this thing called icon, index, and symbol. And this artist named Joseph Boyce kind of did an artwork kind of alluding to that. So right on the, or picture left to right, we have a picture of a chair, the chair itself in the middle, and then also the definition of a chair on the right. But would we have the chair in the middle if we didn't have the definition of the chair? I don't know. Just some food for thought. Okay, abstract. This is the important part where I have to be let my idea just be free on its own and accept criticism. So the title of the essay would probably be Tsuchigumo Soshi, Yokai as an Object and Its Effects on Conciseness and Storytelling. So let me read the abstract. The Tsuchigumo Soshi is a picture story of 2 legendary warriors navigating a house of supernatural powers, or monsters. Suppose each supernatural monsters, a yokai is an object defined as a supernatural monster observed by a viewer. Should a viewer of an object be inclined to view an encounter with the supernatural monster as brief? Brevity in the storytelling of a togizoshi says yes. A togizoshi is a set of prose narratives belonging to the Muromachi period, the Tsuchigumo Soshi being an earlier development of the prose narratives in the early 14th century. This paper will highlight the conciseness of a togizoshi's prose narratives, visual and textual, and the criticism of a togizoshi's shortcomings in character development, like the characters in Tsuchigumo Soshi. Moreover, Tsuchigumo Soshi will be the main example to illustrate the conciseness and criticism of the togizoshi. Perhaps continuing to frame the Tsuchigumo Soshi as brief in its narrative pace will be more telling to how medieval Japan's audience and a contemporary audience established movement in accord to emaki. And some keywords to leave you off with is preference, brevity, object, yokai, conciseness. So that's that. Closing, sources to be used. And yeah, thanks for listening and watching. This was like 15 minutes, which I think is okay timing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your presentations in the following week. And I guess I'll open it up to like a few critiques on just what I was trying to propose in my thesis. As you know, time is very limited on Zoom. Okay, thanks.